So many planars have been released recently, all thanks to one IEM, the 7Hz Timeless. This thing is so darn popular that it just spawns so many other planars from other brands because they want to capitalize on the planar hype. But you know, the popularity of Timeless is really warranted because it really is that good. So yes, Timeless, thank you so much for existing, and thank you so much for ushering in a new age of IEM where planars are just everywhere nowadays, as opposed to back then when we really had like 5 planars to choose from, really. And none of them were really that great. So in today's video, you already saw from the title, we're gonna be talking about a new planar from Hifi. If you guys did not know, they have the original P1, the P1 Plus, the P2s, and now the P1 Max. Now the original P1 and P1 Plus, I wasn't really a gigantic fan of because the technical performance, the level of details that they can muster was lackluster, to say the least. And for the price that they were charging, it's just not up to par with what you can get on the market with other IEMs. Tuning wise, both of them are also on the very safe neutral side, very flat. Some people may like that, but some people may find them a little bit boring. For me, they lack that bit of contrast, that bit of fun for me to really enjoy them on a day-to-day basis. Now in comes the P1 Max. Does this thing improve upon the P1 and P1 Plus? Is it overall a better buy? It is similar price to those two IEMs, so what does the P1 Max have to offer? Let's jump into it. Hey friends, Timmy here, welcome back to another video on Giz Audio. Today of course we're talking about the P1 Max, and I have all my planars out right now on the table. I have my Timeless, I have my S12, I have the new Muse right here. The new Muse is here as well. We're going to be doing comparison of these IEMs to the P1 Max today to see where this really sits in comparison to the planar or the relevant planar on the market today. Now let's start with the overall tuning. I would say this thing is rather neutral still in comparison to a lot of stuff on the market today, especially in comparison to other planars on the market as well. With the bass, I would say the bass is nice. There's good quality bass. There's a bit of warmth though, not bleeding into the mid-range. It's just a bit of heft, the extra bit of musicality towards the low end, if you will. It actually sounds really nice. I really like the low end, how it's done here, leading into a rather neutral mid-range. For me, that's well done and it's really relaxing to listen to. The bass texture is also decent, bass power also decent as well. It's not gonna be too much power for those of you who don't really like too much bass, and it's not gonna be too little power for those of you who enjoy bass as well. So it's right in that line of good for majority of people type of bass power. The mid-range now, like I said again, has a bit of warmth. So male vocals, female vocals, instrumentals are gonna come across a bit more hefty, a bit more heavy musical, if you will, and that kind of signature again is very relaxing to listen to. Lower mid-range and bass separation is generally good as well. I wouldn't say there's any bass bleed or bass bloat that I can sense that is distracting. It's warm, yes, but it's just enough warmth and the separation there is just at the right spot. Now, upper mid-range. This is where the P1 Max doesn't really fit my taste so much, and it's the same problem with the P1 and the P1 Plus. However, it is significantly better than the two previous IEMs. Let me explain. So the P1, P1 Plus, and the P1 Max have this very tame upper mid-range, but the P1 Max has more energy than the previous two, making the P1 Max immediately better tuned than the two predecessors. So if you were to pick one out of the three, the P1 Max is the best one hands down, because the bit of energy in the upper mids here really elevated and add this sense of contrast to the sound signature that the other two just lacks almost altogether. But overall, I would say it's still on the very tame side of things, which makes this IEM more of a niche pick for some of you guys out there who are very sensitive to upper mid-range and treble in general. We'll get into treble here in a little bit, but yes, P1 Max on the upper end is very tamed and relaxing. Now on to the treble area. I would say the treble here is nicely done, neutral, tame treble. So again, Going alongside the safe and relaxing theme of this whole frequency range, the treble is also tamed and also very, very safe. So those of you who are sensitive to treble area, this is gonna be another one of those IEMs that I would recommend to you. Basically, if you're against having too much energy in the top end in any way at all, this is gonna be, I would say, a decent recommendation, almost a high recommendation, just for those specific group of niche people who want that kind of signature. And to be honest, it is a great option to add to the market because the other planars, if you notice, are very energetic. Like the Timeless, the upper mids and treble is really strong. The S12 from Shores, this thing has super energetic treble, spicy, sometimes too much for people. And also, spoiler alert, the Muse Hifi, the Power, this one right here, also has a very intense treble. So those of you who want planar but have always found that the treble or the upper mids are just too aggressive on all the relevant ones right now, have the P1 Max as a good alternative option. Now, on to technical performance, detail retrieval, resolution, and all that good stuff, right? So when it comes to details, let's bring up my scale. This thing has a level of details that is around the star field. Yes, around the star field. I would say not the most detailed, not the most resolving planar out there. The Timeless and the S12 both are better than the P1 in that regard, but it is no slouch either. It's not bad detail-wise. It's just, I would say, on the average side. And for the price that it's charging, I would say it's all right. Very run-of-the-mill down the road. Now, soundstage and imaging. I would say soundstage-wise is average as well, not super wide. It's not narrow either. Really run-of-the-mill, same with the resolution. Imaging-wise is nice. It has quite a nice center image. It has good left and right. It has decent depth of field, but I would say it's not the most pinpoint accurate. But again, like I say in every single one of my video, you don't expect pinpoint imaging at this price bracket. You're just not gonna get it. It doesn't exist at this low price point, at least not yet. Now on to comparison. Let's start off with the comparison with the S12. Now the S12, I said in my previous video, is the best IEM under $200 period because it is similar to the Timeless, costs less than the Timeless, and the sacrifice that it has is just in the technical performance. The resolution is just a little bit less than Timeless. Maybe the tuning is a little less quality than the Timeless, but overall, it is a whopping $70 cheaper. So hence, this is one of the best IEMs you can grab under $200 and also one of the best planar you can grab, period. Now, how does this compare to the P1 Max? Like I said before, this thing has a lot of energy in the upper mids and especially the treble area. So this comes across more correct. Female vocals, male vocals, and instruments pop out more in the S12 than on the P1 Max. Again, the P1 Max is very tame, almost super neutral. It makes everything feel like they're on the same level almost volume-wise, while this makes the vocal pop more and the hi-hats, the percussion hit more crispier on the S12 than on the P1 Max. Now, why buy the P1 Max over the S12 when the S12 is clearly better in just almost every aspect? There's only one reason. Again, if you want less intense sound and you want a planar. A lot of the same things can be said about the Timeless in comparison to the P1 Max, because if the Timeless is a bigger brother, better version of the S12, then everything that I just said applies between these two comparisons as well. There's not many reasons to buy the P1 Max over the Timeless unless you want less energy. All right, now let's talk briefly about the Muse Hifi Power, right? I'm not gonna talk too much about this IEM because a video is coming up on this one very soon. The P1 Max versus the Muse Hifi. Now the Muse Hifi is even more intense in the upper mids, especially upper mids, and the treble area than the previous two that I just talked about, the S12 and the Timeless. So this is pretty much the opposite of the P1 Max. If the P1 Max is a low-end focus IEM with good warmth and good bass, this is a super top-end focus. It does have bass, but the bass is so overpowered by how much you get in the upper mids, how much you get in the treble area, that yeah, this is again super opposite of the P1 Max. So if those two, the S12 and the Timeless, are not enough energy for you, then the Muse Hifi is gonna be the one of choice. But for this video's sake, in comparison to the P1 Max, I would say the Muse Hifi does feel like it has more resolution, just ever so slightly bit more. It does have more contrast than the P1 Max, so vocals pop more on the Muse as well. But again, if you want less energy, the P1 Max is the one to go for. I sound like a broken record, but it really is the only reason to buy the P1 Max, because everything else about it is just average. Details, average. Bass is good, yes, good. Mid-range, average. Upper mids, tame. Treble, average. Everything is just average. The only reason to buy it is that it sounds the most different, is tuned the most different from any of the other Planars on the market, while still sounding good at the same time. So not any wacky tune, it's tuned well, but just different from the other IEMs, and that's really the only reason to buy it. Other than that, the other three, I would say Muse, the S12, and the Timeless are just better picks. Alright, that's it for a review of the P1 Max. Let me know down in the comment section below if you tried the P1 Max before. What do you think of it? Do you like it? If you tried the previous P1s before, what do you think? What do you like? And what is your favorite IEMs planar-wise right now? Yes, that was a lot of questions, but answer them anyway because I love to read your comments. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in another video. Peace. Bye.